Hello, I'm Alex. Welcome to my channel. So today I have another story for you. This is about Isabella Guzman. This is someone that took social media by storm, mostly for the peculiarity of the situation. She's young. She's not what you would see as a typical killer. So what I'll do is I'll go over the story chronologically from the beginning to the end and give some of my commentary in between. So let's get started. Isabella Guzman was born in June 1995 to her mother and father, Yunmi Hoy and Robert Guzman. So their family, they reside in the United States. Isabella, they all live in Colorado, and they may have moved around a bit from what records show. There's not a whole lot of information about that, but Isabella was seen as a very caring and shy child. People that knew her outside of her direct parents, there were family members that thought she was just very sweet, a kind little girl. However, the mother and father, Yunmi Hoy and Robert Guzman, they had a different account because as she was being raised by them, she thought that she was a troublesome child or exhibited certain behaviors that probably were not that aligning too much with their tradition. So Yunmi Hoy, she was a very staunch Jehovah's Witness. So there were certain things that went about in the house that it seemed that Isabella didn't adhere to very well, according to her. Over time, as Isabella grew older, she just didn't really want to do what she was told. She was very rebellious. She didn't want to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore. So by the time she was about 13, 14, she had decided she did not want to be part of that church anymore. And according to Isabella, once she had made that decision, she was treated poorly, or more poorly than she had been before. She felt like she was abused psychologically and just maybe even physically harmed in such a way that was unacceptable in the case of any home. But actually, if you go back a few years, when she was the age of 7, the parents actually got a divorce. So Yunmi Hoy, she called it quits with Robert, the father, and after a little while, she ended up getting with her new husband, which is Ryan. So Ryan Hoy, doesn't appear that he adopted Isabella because he kind of kept his last name, but the wife did, and Isabella kept her biological father's last name, Guzman. Tensions were so bad between Yunmi Hoy and her daughter Isabella that she actually sent her off to live with her ex-husband, Robert. And I'm not really sure what happened. There's not a whole lot of accounts for it, but Yunmi Hoy took her back after a while because, I don't know, maybe Robert didn't really think he could cut it. It's difficult to say. The biological father and Yunmi Hoy, they noticed there was something going on with their child, something very concerning. And this is something that I'm not sure if it's because they were a faith-based household or they were separate households that maybe they didn't give her the proper help that she needed because she was exhibiting these symptoms of maybe mental health issues, but it didn't seem like she really got the right either diagnoses or any kind of help with what she had going on. Reports show that she actually did go to a psychologist for a little while, but the psychologist, he just said that she was just a typical girl going through her aging process and that she was just being rebellious and just being a typical kid. But that's really hard to believe considering you know what happens in the story. It's nothing good. So I think that's a failure on the part of those diagnosing her, or at least not seeing that there is an inherent problem with their patient. But the parents didn't seem to bother their child and having her go to any kind of mental health professional anymore because after that was it. She didn't really get any more help. And this, I think, is a real problem. If somebody's exhibiting certain problem behaviors, Not to say that they should be on medication, but it's good to have some kind of therapy if someone is discontent or showing extreme discontent with their life. That should be taken not in stride to saying, oh, they'll get over it, but it's really important to really see what could be going on. So Isabella, she was very quiet in school. According she didn't really have that many friends. She didn't get along with a lot of people. Her social skills perhaps were lacking for whatever reason. Probably from what I'm implying here later on this video, it seems to be that there is some mental health issues that kind of prevented her to integrate in a normal type of school. She did, however, have a boyfriend. They seemed to be off and on. Seems like your typical teenage type of relationship. That went on for a few years, actually. But it seems that later on in the video, I'll discuss more about what's going on with him. According to Ryan and actually Robert, they're the stepfather and the biological father, they said that Isabella, she became increasingly difficult. They said from their perspective, her mother, Yunmi Hoi, was trying as hard as she could, but there was some kind of disconnect. They could not connect, and there was a seeming ungratefulness from Isabella, saying that she's kind of exuding a resentment. And this resentment seemed to build up over the years. So by the time she left the Jehovah's Witness faith around 13, 14, she got increasingly more resentful and having an utter disdain for her parents, whether they be her step parents or her biological parents. She just wasn't content anymore. And this was very concerning because Yunmi was just losing it. She was losing her temper, and they were getting in scuffles and fights, verbal fights, just shouting matches, and it just was not good. To the point where it's getting closer to when she's getting 17 years of age, 18 years of age. She is there. It's getting really dangerous, and Yunmi sees this. She feels threatened by her, by the way she stares her down, and the way that she's always getting on her case. And it seems that at this point, Yunmi Hoi is not really tolerant anymore of Isabella. It got so bad that in 2013, August 28th, Yunmi called police to report her threatening behavior. She was frightened because she actually had received an email, and she didn't know who it came from, but she suspected maybe it could have been from Isabella because it's basically said, you know, that somebody was coming after her. And the strange thing was, on this email, it was directed towards Cecilia. So Yunmi Hoi, that's her name. It's not Cecilia. So this is very concerning. She thought that there was something very strange going on, and that her daughter was the source of all this. So on this day in August 2013, she actually had the police come by and talk to her. So they went to Isabella, and she was kind of just sitting there with her arms crossed and really not giving that much information, just not really exhibiting that concerning behavior to the police. So they kind of said, okay, well, I mean, do what you have to do, because at this point she was 18 years of age. So the parents, they could have kicked her out of the house if they wanted to. And they were actually thinking of it. So Ryan Hoi and Yunmi Hoi, they were thinking probably we can't do anything about her anymore. She's an adult now. We tried our best, but maybe it's time to wash our hands of this. And after calling the police and the police coming over, the father came over, Robert Guzman, and he talked to her. He said that it was on one day, and he was just telling her and stressing the importance of being respectful to your parents, not being so threatening, just normal, activity that a person should show to another person. Normal respect, don't threaten people, just things that parents should be doing. And according to Robert, that it seemed like it went well because she didn't seem to protest or speak against what he was saying. So he thought that maybe it stuck. Maybe she was going to be more respectful to her mother, and maybe they can just kind of move on from this.
Today, after the police come out and speak with her, What was her attitude or her demeanor after that contact with the officers?
She seemed okay. She was friendly. Her dad gave her a big hug, but I don't think she was very happy that her mom called the police.
So we're still on the same day here. Yunmi, she goes to work, and then later that night she comes home. She goes upstairs, starts taking a shower. So that's part of her routine. Is according to her husband, is she just likes to relax and get ready before she does anything else. Is just to decompress, probably after a stressful day at work. But at around this time, 10 p.m., this thumping sound is really bothering Ryan, the husband, who's downstairs. He's thinking like, okay, what is going on up there? And after a few thumps, he actually hears his name being called out to him by his wife. So this is alarming to him, and then this yelling his name changes into screaming. So he goes up to the restroom. The door, he can't get into the door. It's closed, but it seems like it's being pushed closed. There's somebody else in there with her because this doesn't make any sense. He's thinking like, okay, I'm trying to get in. What's going on? And there's this blood curdling screaming going on in there, and he's just worried for his wife. Ryan Hoy, he pretty much figured that Isabella was in there and she was the one holding the door because he ended up seeing blood coming from underneath the door. And who else would have been holding the door? Because she was the only one there. And he was terrified. He was thinking, I got to get in there and save my wife. And I can't imagine. And finally, the door was open, and Isabella was standing there over her mother's body with a knife. And there was blood everywhere. There was just a pool of blood. She was just standing there, emotionless. And he was terrified. He went to his wife, and he knew there was a real problem. So he needed to call 911 immediately. And that's what he did. And when the police arrived, Isabella, she had fled. It seemed that she had probably realized that something had happened, that she was a perpetrator of, and she needed to get out of there right away. Unfortunately, Yunmi Hoy was pronounced dead upon their arrival, and it's really awful what had happened because they noticeably could see all of these stab wounds all over her. She had been stabbed a numerous amount of times, and later on the report said 79 times. So if you know with any kind of murder investigation, when they see something like 79 times a person being stabbed, they know it's no mistake that there's some rage, there is some passion involved in this kind of incident. This isn't a self-defense type of thing. This is a bloody, really stone cold type of murder.
I saw Isabella, she had a blank expression on her face. I'm not sure what happened with the knife she was carrying. It looked like she was still holding on to it. And I looked down and I saw my wife on the floor. Blood everywhere, all over the bathroom. I was talking to the dispatcher, and the dispatcher told me, make sure you get her breathing again. Get her airways open. I don't know CPR. But at that time, I looked at my wife's eyes, and I knew that she must not have made it. I just couldn't believe that it had happened like that. Isabella was in a rage like I've never seen before.
What do you mean?
Well, I could just hear her just pummeling my wife. I thought she was just hitting her with her fists.
Okay, so that thumping sound
sound I thought was Yumi maybe hitting against the wall, and Isabella just pounding her with her fists.
Okay.
So that's what I originally thought it was, and that's when I called 911.
So now there was a manhunt for Isabella. She had gotten away. She had a car. I'm not sure if it was hers or her parents', but they found her around 16 hours later in a parking garage. She was only wearing some shorts and a sports bra, just whatever she was wearing from that night before. It's very strange too because she was actually out and about according to reports and video, and she went to a store and she had all of this blood all over her clothes. And people were concerned for her. They were thinking, okay, this poor little innocent girl, what happened? And from between there and going back to her car in the parking lot, she was probably just getting some sustenance, getting some food. So there was a girl, or woman rather, that found her and took pity on her. They bought her some supplies and some things that kind of keep her more comfortable. So that probably was food or some effects to that nature. But once they actually found Isabella at the parking garage, when she was trying to escape in her car, they stopped her. Their guns were pointing at her, and they also had a canine along with them to apprehend her. Now that you can see in this interrogation footage, these investigators, they don't have that much patience. If you've seen a lot of these types of interrogations on YouTube, they're not normally like this. They're typically a little more level-headed and building a rapport with whoever that suspect is. So you can see they're not building any rapport at all. They're not even trying. This is a troublesome type of investigation because they're just laying it on her. They're not really trying to get information from her. They're just saying, oh, this is what we have. Just tell us everything right now. And that's not really how these things work. So I believe this department had gotten some criticism, not only from me, but from other YouTubers and probably other legal people that were overseeing this case.
I don't know what happened with her and her life and who she is or what school she went to. That's not my problem. My problem right now is finding my boyfriend.
It's a funny game you're playing, but nobody's laughing. Do you think some juror sitting on a jury is going to believe that you're not the person we suspect killed their mother? When you're caught right down the street with knife injuries to your hand?
Scissors.
It's not scissor injuries.
I told you they were scissors.
It's not scissor injuries.
Yes, it was. You're not going to bully me into admitting what you want me to, pretend
No,
to be.
I suspect we're probably not. I mean, that's a decision you have to make in your own head. I mean, that's the bottom line. You're 18 years of age. You understand why you're here. You know what you've done. We've given you an opportunity to talk about what you've done. We've given you an opportunity to give us a reason why you did what you did. And you've continued on this crazy-ass story that this you have nothing to do with this, and that story is not believable. We don't
It doesn't
believe
have to be believable. It will be proven.
If the police don't believe you, what do you think happens?
You go to court.
Yeah, you go to jail, for one.
You go to court.
And someday you're going to go to court. Yep. And if this is your way of trying to get through it, then so be it. But just so you know, I mean, obviously we don't believe you. We don't believe anything you've told us here today. And my guess is that you're probably going to continue down the same road, acting like you don't know what we're talking about and pretending that none of this applies to you and you're not that person. And I don't know what TV show you watched that thought this would be a good idea to come up with a plan for defending yourself against a murder charge, but I can tell you it's not going to work. So you're so tired?
I've been sleeping in a park all night.
And you're sleeping out, running
Around
from the
trying
police
to
all
find my
night.
boyfriend.
Running from the police is tiring.
I didn't run. from
Actually, you were
the
sleeping in a Jeep.
A Jeep.
Yeah, the basement of the parking garage. Do you remember that?
I was not sleeping in a Jeep.
Why do you lie about just where you were sleeping?
Somebody saw you.
How do you think we found you? Somebody saw you and called us.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
it does.
You can tell from her mannerisms and the way she's talking, she seems to be convincing that she has nothing to do with it. Because it doesn't really make any sense. How can you speak so nonchalantly like you're just a typical teenager, and why are you talking to me like this? I just can't imagine. She doesn't seem very guilty.
When was the last time you cried?
Last time I cried,
Yeah.
when I ran away,
You got a pretty good memory, don't you?
I have a normal person's memory.
Okay. I don't think you're a normal
It
person.
took me like a week to get here.
Did you hear me? I don't think you're a normal person. I asked you when the last time you cried.
I told you I cried when I ran away.
You didn't run away from anywhere. You ran away from a crime scene is what you did.
No, I did not.
So you cried when you ran away last night?
I did not do any of these things. I am not Isabella.
Maybe
Oh,
we should just
really?
bring,
Why don't you just
Robert
bring the
down here.
DNA test?
Let's bring Robert down here.
Who's Robert?
You know who Robert is.
No, I don't.
Robert could stand right there in that doorway and identify you. You're his own flesh and blood.
According to Ryan, Isabella and Robert were always close, even through thick and thin, but she can't seem to remember that.
How about if we have Ryan come down?
Who's that?
Your stepdad. Have him
That's
come
her
in.
stepdad.
We could have Ryan come in. I mean, he's the one that last saw you before you took off running from the police last night.
This is all her life, and you keep saying it's mine.
He's the one that identified you. What do you think about that? We'll have him come down. Maybe you can apologize.
I'm not going to apologize to a stranger. What do you mean? I didn't kill anybody.
He would come in and stand at the doorway and lie about committing somebody who committed a.
Well, obviously somebody died, or this wouldn't be happening. But I didn't kill anybody.
Why would he lie about it?
I don't even know what you're trying to. I don't even understand what you're trying to say right now.
And you can see the heat rising up in these interrogators. They are really ticked off, and they're not hiding it either. And the thing is with Isabella, she is noticeably perturbed. She's thinking that she is this other person and that they have the wrong person. That this isn't Isabella. That she is not Isabella.
Kathy, maybe?
Who's that?
Come on now, Isabella.
Stop calling me Isabella.
You know who that is?
Wait, you guys are like, what? Didn't you say that this girl has no friends?
Well, there's people that know you. They may not be your friend.
And at this point in the video, I mean, I when I saw this video, I was kind of wondering, is this girl for real? Is she really believing what she is saying? Is this really what's going on? It's mind-boggling. But later on in the video, you'll kind of see some of the context of why we, as the people watching this video, would think that way.
Please bring the DNA test now so I can leave.
You're not leaving, just so you understand that.
The DNA will not match.
Well, that you can continue.
If the DNA does not match, I will be free,
You can continue
right?
to think that, but you are not leaving, just so you
Okay,
know.
theoretically, if the DNA doesn't match, you have to let me go, right?
No.
That doesn't make any sense. Yes.
No, you've been identified as a killer.
I have not been identified.
By an
If the
eyewitness.
DNA does not match, then I will be set free.
Well, that's not going to be the case. We won't know that for months.
For
You're under arrest for
months.
first-degree murder. You have no bond. You ain't going nowhere but jail. And you're not 15. You're 18.
No, I am not. You cannot do this to me. This is wrong.
Yes, we
You
can.
have to prove I am who she is before you can take me anywhere.
No, we don't. We know who you
Isabella,
are.
we're trying to give you an
Stop calling
opportunity.
me Isabella.
We're just trying to give you an opportunity to tell us what happened.
Stop calling me Isabella.
You don't understand. You don't understand.
My
the
name
full
is
impact
Samantha.
of this, do you? You don't understand the full impact. Yes, you're going to jail. No, you are not getting out of jail. There is no bond with first-degree murder. Do you understand that?
I didn't murder anybody.
And we'll easily prove a case against you.
You can't prove anything because I didn't do it.
Yeah, we will.
Well, that's your opinion.
Man, what's wrong with
You
all
have
of you?
no conscience. None.
I'm not evil. You don't even
Yeah,
know who I am. I'm just a random girl on the street
Oh.
that you ambushed.
No, you're one of the most evil person I've ever sat across the table from.
I'm not evil.
Yeah, you are.
No, I'm not.
Very.
Typical people in interrogation, they act a certain way. This is not very typical at all. The way that she's acting, the way that she is showing annoyance, she doesn't seem to be withholding or saying that she's Isabella and that she's saying that no, it was somebody else. She's just saying she's just not that person at all.
You scared the hell out of me. Because you have no conscience.
I scare the hell out of you.
Yeah, you have no conscience. You can do anything to anybody and not even feel
How do you
anything
do
about
this thing?
They even bring the biological father, Robert, in there to try to identify her. And the investigators are saying, okay, this is your daughter, right? He says, yes, absolutely. And he hugs her, and she's acting that way. It's very strange. It's a very strange thing that even at this time, she is still denying who she is, what her real identity is.
Sir, do you recognize this?
Who are you?
Hey, Robert, why don't you come on back out here for a second? Do you recognize her?
Yeah, she's my daughter.
What's her name?
Isabella
Isabella. What's her last name?
Guzman.
Isabella Guzman. Okay.
All
This
right.
photograph here. Is that photograph? Is that your daughter there?
Yeah,
Okay. And this is your daughter here.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's go ahead and we'll sit back here and then we'll see about come back for the phone.
Okay. Falling back there.
Is he insane? Does she have like a crazy family, like a completely crazy family? Is that why she's psychotic and killed her mom?
And this makes me wonder, because they brought the boyfriend in here as well to be interviewed, why didn't the boyfriend really say anything about problems that maybe he had with her as far as her mental health was concerned? This wasn't really brought up. They didn't seem to really buy that she had mental health problems. And this is a problem. Even if she didn't have mental health problems and she was just trying to conceal the truth, investigations aren't done this way. You don't question a criminal or a potential criminal in this way. This is not how you get information.
So did you go to the house on the day that this happened?
No.
Wednesday?
No.
You weren't there at all that day?
No.
Somebody saw you there that day. Her stepdad said you came by the house, walked in the house, and went upstairs and had to get some stuff.
Oh yeah, I grabbed my stuff from the closet. I
I
didn't see her though,
So you were there that day.
but I didn't see
You
her.
didn't see her. Where was she at?
I don't know.
Okay. So when you go to the house that day, what time is it when you go there then?
I think it was around 5.
So 5 in the afternoon?
So as you can see, my opinion is that this entire interrogation was botched because they were trying to strong arm her into saying that she's Isabella, but that did not work, right? And when you find out later, there's a reason why the strong arming just didn't work. Typically, when people are in this kind of mental state, pushing them to their limits isn't going to make them say something different, especially if they really believe they're not that person.
Well, yeah, I guess when you're just a selfish, callous, heartless person like yourself,
Why are you
you would
insulting
have
me?
no feelings whatsoever for your own
Why are
father.
you insulting me?
Clearly, you had no feelings for your own mother. So I don't know why I would be at all surprised
I'm
by your
not
demeanor.
Isabella.
But yeah, he's wondering why his own
Yes,
daughter, his own
nothing
flesh and
else.
blood, would
And always
act
have
that way.
been.
But I just found out
Always
something
will be.
different. You want to hear what I found out?
What?
Okay. You were at H Mart today? Yes?
Yes, I'm fucking Asian market. I stopped by there on the way because I needed fucking pads.
Can you sit up, please, so I can hear you? Stop talking into your knees.
I stopped by there because I needed some fucking pads. I was hoping somebody
Right.
would be nice enough to let me borrow them, and she actually bought me some shit.
Okay, she bought you those clothing items right there. An
She didn't
Asian
buy me
lady did?
clothing. The clothes are fucking mine. She bought me the fucking pads and the underwear.
In the summer of 2014, Isabella Guzman was convicted of murder, and they went through the whole rigmarole. They went through the trial. They had the witnesses, and they had doctors. They came in there, and it seems like they gave a convincing account of the medical history of Isabella and her mental state, because they ruled that she really believed what she was saying. So as you remember back to those interrogation videos, she really believed that. In her mind, she was not Isabella. So the trial, they pretty much could confirm that yes, Isabella did kill her mother, and that case is closed. However, the punishment didn't really fit the situation. So putting her in jail for the rest of her life didn't make any sense. So they actually found her not guilty by reason of insanity. So by reason of insanity, that's a very hard thing to prove. You can't really just prove that you're insane, because the way I would see it, all criminals are insane. It's illogical to commit these crimes. It's illogical to kill another person. But in this case, Isabella, she had schizophrenia, and they were able to diagnose this. They were able to diagnose it, because schizophrenia, I'm not sure if you know a little bit about it, but it's a way in which you're able to convince yourself that you're in one reality, but in actuality there is something else going on entirely. She believed wholeheartedly that she wasn't Isabella at that time. And I think a lot of demented killers, not the ones that are psychopaths, but the ones that are perhaps, I don't know, they can justify their killing. I think there's a certain amount of schizophrenia in those people, and I think schizophrenia is a highly dangerous condition. And I think it's very important for those that are in a schizophrenic fit. They need to be treated as a person in a mental health emergency, and they need to be treated, because if this isn't done before something like this happens, I mean, of course, something is going to be awful. And so Isabella was found guilty, but she was able to get out of jail because she was sent to a mental institution in Pueblo, Colorado, in which she was treated for her condition, which I think was the right call on the judge, because with the expert witness of diagnosing her with schizophrenia, that was a big difference between someone going to a mental hospital and going to prison. And unfortunately, according to Isabella, she was allegedly abused several times while she was in the care of people in the Pueblo institution. These are alleged because nobody has been found guilty or tried for those allegations.
In 2015, she reported to police she had been sexually assaulted by a hospital employee in a closet.
He asked me if I wanted to go in there and look through to get some clothing, so I did. The other patient left, and he went in there and shut the door behind him.
The case was investigated by the state hospital's police. The Department of Human Services denied our request for information, citing privacy laws. Isabella said there were 2 other incidents with the same employee.
I was afraid that if I didn't do what he wanted, that he could ruin my life.
She is now seeking prosecution of the man she claims assaulted her, but the Pueblo DA says he never got such a case back then from the hospital police.
So hard on me emotionally and mentally. It made me feel like I wanted to give up.
But what Isabella Guzman would like most of all is release from this facility.
If I could change it, or if I could take it back, I would.
She is hoping to see freedom one day.
Unfortunately, all over the world, especially with the Me Too movement, there have been a lot of things that have come out into the light as far as abuse in certain institutions, mental institutions. That's the reason why not a lot of them exist now, because the abuse that occurred in these institutions was appalling. People were chained up. I mean, the list goes on. It's a really dark part of history in which mentally ill people were abused in the care of people that were supposed to take responsibility for them. And actually, in 2020, Isabella, she pleaded to the public saying that she was better now and that she was ready to be released and to be free again. And I know what you're thinking. She murdered her mother. How can society have someone like that around? But according to her and some medical professionals, that she was harmless now, that there was not really that risk anymore because she had been treated for her schizophrenia. She was given her medicine, and that she was going to continue taking that medicine, and that she was no longer a threat. In 2021, the judge actually ruled that she could leave the facility. Not permanently, but she was able to leave to go see her therapist and do a few other things under supervision. And that is quite interesting because during this time on social media, she was becoming very famous, particularly for her looks and the fact that she just seemed to be nonchalant about what happened. This doesn't look like a girl that is terrified that she's been involved with the alleged killing of her own mother. The strange thing is that Isabella Guzman, she became somewhat of a celebrity because people almost kind of romanticize the whole situation, thinking that this lady is great, what she did, maybe they deserved it, maybe they were so hard on her, and that's horrible. You shouldn't justify violence against anyone. This was just a very unfortunate situation in which something went untreated, and basically the signs were there and the proper action wasn't taken. It's very sad for Yoon-Mi Hoi that this had happened to her. In no way can you say to anybody out in social media that she deserved it at all. There's no way to justify saying that. There really isn't. That's pretty much the story about Isabella Guzman. There's not a whole lot going on with her now. She's trying to live a more private life. Of course, you probably want to live a private life if you had something so traumatic happen in your life where you're thinking you're another person, then you're not, and your whole reality is fragmented into tiny bits, and now finally you're kind of seeing clearly again. This is just something that probably is important for her to move on with her life and maybe be a spokesperson for people that have issues that need to seek help for those issues. And that's pretty much it for this video. So be sure to like and subscribe this video, and understand there'll be more to come. And if you have any comments or any insight into this case, be sure to let me know in the comment section below. And until then, I will see you on the next video.